Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to Season 17 of the Attrition Sim Race Campus Oval Series presented by SM Racing Products. Tonight here for one of the bigger tracks on the schedule here this season, the second biggest overall actually, here at the Darlington Raceway, going in at 1.36 miles in length, or about 2.2 kilometers for those of you who use the metric system. Pretty much one of only two ovals here on the schedule that are bigger than a mile, and actually this oval is bigger than some of the road courses that we've gone to, and will be bigger than, I believe, the next road course that we are going to here as well. The course opened up back in 1950, not 1915. Home of the Southern 500. Lots of NASCAR history here at this track. But we're not quite doing NASCAR racing here tonight. Taking these little mini stock machines out here, seeing how they managed to do on this bigger track. Of course, Charlotte was basically like Daytona here in these cars, and I imagine this track is not going to prove itself to be very much easier. Of course, third time that ASRC has visited this speedway. Previous two times was back in Season 14 and Season 16. Both times were in 2024. The first winner of that was Bryson Hicksenbog, and the second winner was Brian Sabelski. Both of those drivers in the Gen 4 Cup car, which I'll tell you what, has substantially more power than these mini stock machines have. That said, you can take a look down here at the weather here. 98% humidity and partially cloudy. Really not a hot day by any means at all, but it is a very dense fog here over the speedway. Dare I say it's a little bit spooky. We'll see how that bodes for these drivers here as they start to make their way down to the starting grid for tonight's event. So, taking a look down here at our starting lineup, starting out on the pole here in that number 12 machine, that is our current championship points leader by now a whole 44 points. That's going to be the Hardcore Tan OC entry driver out of Mechanicsville, Maryland. That's going to be none other than Garrett Hess. Starting his outside in the number 85 in the Maconi Setup Shop entry, that is one of our two drivers that have taken home wins at this speedway before. That is going to be the number 85 of Brian Sabelski, rolling it off position number 2. Back in third in the ASRC number 93, rocking a new paint scheme here this evening, driver out of North Carolina. That is going to be none other than League Administrator Mr. Jason Gardner. Back in fourth, that's going to be the 188 K9P Racing entry of Joshua Rudolph, driver out of Medford, Wisconsin, starting off there in position number 4. Back in fifth, it's going to be none other than Daniel Sparks in the HTB entry, one of our Mooselander drivers out of Canada. He's going to be rolling off back in fifth here this evening. And starting his outside in the MRN number 45, that's going to be none other than Mark Kluge. Back in seventh, we have the CZ Robotics number 24. That's the driver out of Noonan, Georgia. That is the 24 of Corey Logan back in position number 7. Then back in 8th, we're going to have the 42 Mooselander entry of Mr. Michael Sparks, rolling it off position number 8. Back in 9th, it was our runner-up in the point standings for a pretty decently long time. Unfortunately, lost a couple of spots here in these last couple of races. Still looking to make a stand. It's one half of the SM Racing Products team. That's going to be none other than Mr. Garrett Streets, rolling it off position number 9. Then back in 10th at the tail end of this 10-car field, that is going to be none other than Mr. Derek Murphy, rolling it off back in position number 10. So that's how things are going to be rolling off here this evening, getting ready to take the green flag already. Of course, at these greater than 1 mile tracks, we only do a single pace lap. So sure enough, the pace car going to make the duck down to the safety of pit lane, and we are getting to get this thing green flag racing here for round number 9 of season 17. Garrett Hess leads the field to the green, and green flag up in the air just like that here at the Darlington Raceway. 74 laps is the distance, and it is bound to be 74 laps of a whole lot of action in these tiny little mini stocks. And down through turns 1 and 2, everything seems to be a-okay. Single filed out for the most part up in the front, but back in the mid-pack we are 2 by 2, and Jason Gardner in that number 93 got a little bit loose in the rear end coming out of turn number 2. Now going into turns 3 and 4 here, a little bit wider here for these two turns. A little bit easier to keep your foot down on the gas pedal here. Looking around the field, looks like everyone seems to be doing okay. We complete lap number 1 so far without incident. Still looking at the side-by-side battle here between Jason Gardner and Mark Kluge here, battling it out for the 4th position between these two drivers. Just ahead, that's the 188 of Joshua Rudolph as we have contact. Mark Kluge in the outside wall. He hangs on to it, but we might have some damage to the right front there. We'll have to see when he comes around here. Definitely having a hard time getting that 45 back up to speed, but these cars also just don't have great acceleration, so hard to tell if that's from damage or just from losing all that momentum. But he has it, looks like, up to speed now, up to a 1.2 second gap from the rest of the field here. Of course, looking a little bit further up, Jason Gardner starting to pull away from this battle here as we have the 4 of Daniel Sparks and the 24 of Corey Logan taking it out here for the 5th and 6th position. But so far, looking around the field, things have generally single-filed out there just a little bit. You can see our 2 race leaders, Garrett Hess and Brian Sabelski, have already begun to separate from the rest of the field up to a 1 second gap here between our 2 race leaders and the rest of the field here. Hess leading the way, Sabelski just behind. Hess, of course, is the man to beat here. Sabelski took home the win in the past in those Gen 4 machines, but Hess has taken home 6 wins out of 8 races so far here in the season. Half of those wins he led every single lap for, so he has shown that he has quite the muscle here in these mini stock cars. As we have a driver off the track, it looks like the caution flag has not come out, but that looks like the front bumper has been ripped off the number 42 of Michael Sparks. See if we can't take a quick look back here and figure out what happened to that driver. Looking like all by himself here as we look at the replay, getting a little bit loose out the corner, and oh, hard impact down to the inside wall on the back straightaway. He brings the car to a stop, takes the tow down to pit lane before the caution flag is able to fly. So that might just be Michael Sparks' race over with. Definitely unfortunate to see a very massive impact for that driver. Coming into tonight's event, Michael Sparks was being scored back in the 11th position, right behind Daniel Sparks, about 18 points back for the 10th position. So that incident not going to be doing Michael any favors here in that battle. A little bit further back in the field, though, how about this battle for 3rd here of Daniel Sparks and Joshua Rudolph? Sparks down on the bottom, currently the most improved driver on the speedway, up +2 from where he qualified and gaining just behind Gardner and Rudolph, now battling it out. And Gardner down the very bottom of the track, got loose again there just a little bit. Oh, they're going to come up, make contact with each other. Corey Logan's just behind, looking for an opportunity to get around here. Logan follows Gardner, throw on the bottom. Both drivers able to get around Rudolph there as Daniel Sparks scraping hard against the outside wall in that 4 machine. That's going to cause them to lose a little bit of ground there here in this battle. Right now, 2 closest cars on the track here are the 93, 24, and 188. And honestly, the 4 of Daniel Sparks starting to fall back here just a little bit as well. 2 separate battles, all under a pretty close bubble here. I'll be curious to see if any of these drivers are able to close up to the 85 of Sabelski or the 12 of Hess. As again, Sparks a very small scrape against the outside wall. These may not be NASCAR racing machines, but these drivers sure are able to pick up Darlington stripes just like any other. But so far, a caution-free race here this evening as we get ready to put 10 laps in the books here. It definitely looks like drafting is going to be the name of the game here this evening, as that 93 is all over the rear bumper of the number 4 of Daniel Sparks. Gardner's going to go up high, see if he can't make a move happen, but not quite able to. Doesn't got the momentum. Gonna suck back up here down the front straightaway. Now he's going to stick his nose down to the bottom for turns 1 and 2, but again, backs out of it. Not quite comfortable with making that move here. course, Gardner running in a new paint scheme here this evening. Same sponsors and everything, and mostly it's just an alternate color palette, of course. Throughout the season, we've seen him running a white and orange number 93, now often for the black and orange here at Darlington. Pretty good looking car. It's a shame that it's so foggy here, because it's honestly making it harder to see everyone's paint schemes here this evening. But Jason Gardner running in the 4th position, down 1 spot from where he qualified, and right now it's looking like Daniel Sparks is pulling away from him. A little bit further back, it looks like Garrett Streets has also gotten around the 188 of Joshua Rudolph. That 15 machine, like I said earlier, was battling for the championship points lead with Garrett Hess at one point, but he has unfortunately fallen back to the 5th position, right behind Jason Gardner and Joshua Rudolph in points. And right behind Sabelski, honestly, as well. Second on back to 7th is all under a really tight points bubble here, but Garrett Hess has a full 44-point lead over the rest of the field here. It's getting to the point where it won't be mathematically possible for him to close that gap up. Going back here to this battle for 3rd as Jason Gardner catches up to Daniel Sparks, but not only that, both of these drivers are catching up to our 2nd place driver of Sabelski. Sparks gets up into the outside wall. He's going to lose the position to Gardner. Will we see Logan follow through down on the bomb as well? Looks like the answer will be yes. Logan goes for the pass here, and they are going to be able to make it stick, and Garrett Streets is trying to follow through here as well in that number 15 machine. That 4 car of Sparks getting a little bit loose here through the corner, but not giving up quite yet. And here's the 188 entry of Joshua Rudolph. He wants to get involved here in this battle as well. Neck and neck between these two drivers. They make a little bit contact through the corner, but everyone's still pointed in the right direction. This battle slowing them down. Now Mark Kluge is getting involved in this battle as well. 4th all the way back to 8th are within a second of each other right now. Quite the crazy battling going on here on the speedway between these drivers. Now we see Rudolph trying to get down the bomb. Are we going to send it 3 wide here? Not quite, but they certainly thought about it there for a second. But no 3 wide quite yet here at Darlington as Rudolph gets, or no, excuse me, Kluge gets loose through the corner there. Nearly a spin for that number 45, but manages to hang on to it here. Now Corey Logan leads this called about 5-car battle here. Streets trying to make the move up on the high line now, and again a little bit of contact there between the 24 and oh, they make contact. Hard, no, maybe, no, not quite. He's trying to save it. Hang on to it. Hell of a save by Daniel Sparks. Unfortunately, that is going to send him back here about, maybe call it about 3 seconds here, as there's more cars into the outside wall here. That's the 78 of Derek Murphy losing a little bit of ground. Mark Kluge and the 188 of Joshua Rudolph are all over each other. Corey Logan's down on the apron. I have no idea what's going on here anymore, race fans, but these drivers are all over each other here this evening. It's looking like for the most part we've calmed down. We've settled down here just a little bit. Take a moment. Let's see if we can't get a bit of a replay here of what happened to Daniel Sparks. I think this is where we're going to want to be looking here. Just getting some crazy battling here out of these drivers. There's a little bit of contact, I believe, with the 24 of Corey Logan. Not quite. We might have gone too far back here. Nope, there's a little bit of contact. Nope. Maybe not. I think we might have gone too far back here, race fans. We will get a replay of that here shortly. But they are still under the green flag, and they are still battling out here. Looking down here at Rudolph, Kluge, and Streets. Battling it out for the 4th position here. They have a gap built up between them and the leading pack, but Sabelski and Gardner are getting ready to start battling it out here as well for the 2nd position. The 15 machine, that's Garrett Street, sends up down on the apron just a little bit, trying to make a decision on where he wants to run. Follow the 45 or the 188, and the 188 is going to drift up there just a little bit. Streets goes way down to the bottom, try and make the move down on the bottom, and It actually manages to work for that 15 machine. Garrett Streets manages to get around Joshua Rudolph there. Now he's going to drift up the track a little bit on corner entry. Not enough for the 188 to get an opening, though. All sorts of craziness going on here in the mid-pack today, and it is bound to only keep getting spicier as this race goes on. Not even a third of the way through tonight's event here. Drivers starting to single file out here just a little bit. I think now we've got the incredible save out of the 4 of Daniel Sparks spooled up here, so we'll take a quick look back here at this battle. Contact with the 15, a little bit of a scrape against the inside wall, but nothing too bad. Nearly loses it again. We're going to take one more look back at this right quick. We're going to ride on board with that driver, see what he saw here in this incident. Absolutely amazing save by that former machine of Daniel Sparks. Sparks currently right now running back in the 9th position, about 4 seconds back from Derek Murphy and Corey Logan. But still on the lead lap here. If a caution flag were to come out, it is entirely possible that he will get back up and involved here in this battle, should the field get bunched back up. Still looking down at this battle here for 4th on back to about 7th here. Garrett Street's the current leader here in this battle, but Mark Kluge is all over the tail of that 15 machine here as they head down through the corner. Street's building up a little bit of a gap to work with. It's actually pretty equidistant between each of these drivers. If you pull up here the battle box, you can see roughly how spread out each of these cars are. As Kluge getting loose through the corner, he hangs on to it, but big drift, dirt tracking it here a little bit at Darlington. Quite the battles that these drivers have put on here in these mini stock machines. And the scrape against the outside wall, that's going to cost Kluge some ground. Now the 188 is trying to get down beneath him. So is Corey Logan in that 24. Neither driver quite able to do it. And once again, now we see Derek Murphy close up just a bit as this battle hang on to it, Murphy, up into the outside wall there in that 78 machine. That's going to cost him a little bit of ground here, but nothing too catastrophic. I think that's one of the big things here is nothing too catastrophic has happened to any of these drivers in this battle. I mean, we've had a couple of mistakes, a couple of near spins, but so far everyone in this pack has been doing a pretty good job of keeping things pointed in the right direction despite all the beating and banging going on here. Things do seem to be calming down between them all just a little bit, but further up in the field, Jason Gardner is hot on the heels of that number 85 of Brian Sabelski here in this battle for the 2nd position here. Only 0.2 of a second dividing the two of them. Call it really about a car length, maybe a car length and a half between the two of them. And all the while, Garrett Hess is pulling up to a 1.3 second lead over the rest of the field here. Led every lap so far. Looking to try and make tonight's race the same as it was at Lanier last week, where he took home the win after leading every single lap. We will just have to see, though. There's always the element of the unknown here in the ASRC Oval Series, so still a long way left to go here in tonight's event. Hess has definitely not won the race yet, but he is looking pretty good out there while he runs. Sabelski and Gardner still the two closest drivers on the speedway, battling it out for the 2nd position. Gardner is hot on the heels of him here, but just not quite able to close up and make a move happen. But there seems to be a little bit more drama going on here in the mid-pack. There was some changes for positions. Corey Logan and Joshua Rudolph both able to get around Mark Kluge. He has been bumped back to the 7th position here. I assume maybe just a little scrape against the outside wall, but that has lost him a bit of ground. Now he has the number 78 of Derek Murphy hot on his heels here. But it's still pretty much the same 5-car battle from Streets in 4th all the way back to Murphy in 8th. And no one is willing to give an inch here. Now that 45 looking on the tail of the 188. Both these drivers are teammates with each other, Rudolph and Kluge. Both drivers, I believe, were able to get a podium last week at Lanier as well. Sure enough, yeah, Kluge and Rudolph were the two drivers that rounded out the podium last week. Of course, Garrett Hess took home the win. Right now, the two of them running in 6th and 7th, respectively. Gardner once again starting to close up on that number 85 machine here. And you can actually see Garrett Hess up in front of them. Hess is not out of the picture quite yet. He hasn't just completely stolen the show like we sometimes see in these other races, but that you can see the gap for the lead and the gap in this battle for second a little bit clearer there. Gardner, for a brief second, thought about going down to the bottom of the track. Sabelski slides up just a little bit, but Gardner's just not close enough to capitalize on it there in that number 93 machine. Just like that, the gap grows to half a second between them. And once again, the gap tightens up in these drivers battling it out for the mid-pack as we have some crazy moves going on here. Big wiggles out of Kluge, big wiggles out of Rudolph, big wiggles out of Logan here, all down the back straightaway. They've started to get things sort of back out, but they are 2 by 2 here. Logan and Kluge battling it out side by side. Logan not quite able to clear that 45, and of course the 188's right in front of them, so not like they can exactly clear the 45 at all. Sure enough, though, Rudolph going to start pulling away there, and that will allow Logan to get back down onto the preferred line here. But will they be able to hang on to it, because Kluge is all over their bumper here. Once again, head down into turns 3 and 4. Kluge running a slightly lower line there than Logan is, but not quite able to make the pass through 3 and 4. It seems like a lot of the times the moves have been getting made here through turns 1 and 2. Of course, 1 and 2 narrower than 3 and 4, so a little bit more of a, not quite a braking zone per se, but definitely having to reduce your speed a lot more through 1 and 2 than you are through 3 and 4. Now we see Rudolph trying to make the move on Streets here, and of course I say that going into 3 and 4, looks like he will be able to at least pull up alongside, not quite able to clear him. Logan trying to follow that 188 through, not quite able to do it. Now he moves up to the high side, and there is Kluge all over the back bumper, giving a bit of a push there to the 24 machine. Still side by side as we have a battle for the race lead going on here as well. Sabelski has caught up to Hess. We are side by side for the first time in the race lead for tonight's event, and Gardner is involved in this battle for the lead as well. Hess still hangs on to it for the time being, but Sabelski might just break that streak of Hess taking home wins after leading every single lap. Here comes Gardner just behind here as well. The gap has closed up considerably in these last couple of laps in this battle for the race lead. Of course, these three drivers have pulled up a full 8-second gap over the rest of the field here. But it is anyone's game in these three front runners here. Looking at the lap times last time by, it was a 34.14 for Hess, a 34.4 for Sabelski and Gardner. 0.3 of a second the difference between first and second. Sabelski is going to drop way down to the bottom of the track, though. It looks like Sabelski might be coming down pit lane here. Sure enough, Sabelski will be our first taker down on pit lane. That leaves Garrett Hess and Gardner battling it out for the race lead here. And it looks like there are no takers on pit lane along with Sabelski. He is down there by himself. Of course, Pretty long pit lane here for these tiny little cars. Hasn't even making it down to his pit box yet. We will see him go a lap down here. You can see at the top of your screen Hess and Gardner coming out of turn number 4, coming across the start-finish line. And it is still neck and neck between the two of them as they duke it out for first. And still no other drivers making the call to come down pit lane quite yet. So Sabelski running on a bit of a strategy of his own here. Very curious to see how that ends up playing out for him. Still looking down here at this battle for the race lead. Now a 2-car battle as Garrett Hess, current championship points leader by nearly 50 points, goes neck and neck with league administrator Mr. Jason Gardner. Of course, in that ASRC number 93, he's the guy who puts on pretty much all the work here in the ASRC Oval Series. I just show up and broadcast it. Gardner running up here in second, looking to try and take home his first win of the season, if at all possible. Would not be his first podium here. He has gotten at least one podium here this season. I want to say 2. Oh, looks like he got just the one at the Oxford Plains Speedway, but looks like multiple 4th place finishes for the number 93. So just outside the podium, if not in the podium itself. Here he is, potentially setting up the opportunity to make a pass for the race lead. Sabelski is back out on track. He is 1 lap down right now, but still no one else in the field has elected to come down pit lane yet. Very curious to see how this gamble works out for the number 85 machine, and if we will see any other drivers pit here anytime soon, or maybe they're waiting for a caution, but we've gone caution free for most of the asphalt races here on the schedule. It feels like we have had some cautions in the dirt races, but of course not everyone's super familiar with that. And now we see our 2 race leaders coming down to pit lane. No, it was a fake pit out of Garrett Hess, but Gardner comes down to pit lane. We'll take a quick look back at that just to make sure we're looking at this right. Looking down at our race leader, Garrett Hess. Okay, maybe that wasn't a fake pit. Maybe he was just taking a lower line there than I was expecting. But sure enough, Hess stays out. Now Gardner and Sparks both down on pit lane. Gardner works his way into his stall. And now we see some more takers as well. Garrett Hess coming down this time by, so it's also possible if that wasn't a fake pit out of Hess, he might have just not quite felt confident on his pit stop, decided he was carrying too much speed, wanted to go around and try again to get a better entry. But sure enough, that will have our race leader come down. Now Garrett Streets is the current race leader, and still this battle rages on between Kluge, Rudolph, Logan, and Murphy. Going to be very interesting to see how things shake out between these drivers. Assuming that they are all running on the same pit strategy here, we might see them all come down at the same time here in the next lap or two. And it looks like Rudolph, Murphy, and Kluge all stay out. Logan going to be coming down this time by. Now we have Kluge and Rudolph still duking it out here. Derek Murphy about a second back from the two of them, but right now this is the closest battle on the speedway between these two drivers. You can see Murphy back there just coming out of corner exit. Going to be a little bit of a game of chicken between these two drivers, I think. Of course, there is still the bonus point for leading at least 1 lap here in the series, and some of these drivers do factor that into their pit strategies, staying out late to try and pick up that one single bonus point. Most of the field is starting to make their way back out on the track now as this battle between Kluge and Rudolph continues. I think we might see Kluge come down this time by, but of course you gotta remember these two drivers are our teammates, both racing with the K9P organization, so we're probably going to see the two of them pit around the same time, if not outright together. try and pull a little bit of a Daytona strategy here and be drafting partners together after their pit. Derek Murphy still out here on the raceway. Same with Garrett Streets. Your 4 drivers still on the lead lap are your 4 drivers that still have yet to come down to pit lane. So we have officially crossed the halfway point. Actually, pretty decently little bit ago. So we'll see how the long game works out for some of these drivers. Daniel Sparks currently being scored 3 laps down here, though. So I think Sparks might have had some trouble down in his pit stop. Sure enough, most of these drivers had 20-second pit stops. Daniel Sparks had 1 minute and 2 seconds down in his box. And that is not factoring the nearly 40 seconds it takes them to get into and out of their stall just on pit lane. So all in all, it was nearly a full 2-second stop for Daniel Sparks, and sure enough, going to be going 3 laps down because of that. Now it's mostly just the big question of when we see Streets and Kluge and Rudolph and Murphy all come in pit, because once they do that, Brian Sabelski will actually be the driver that cycles around to the race lead once that happens. Of course, Sabelski pitted about 5 to 6 laps earlier than everyone else, so he will be running on older tires than the rest of the field. But I'm curious as to just how much tire wear is really playing into effect here. Does look like Daniel Sparks has come down pit lane again in that number 4 machine. We might be seeing him serve a penalty of some sort. I am not certain of that. So we'll keep an eye on that 4 machine and see if we can't see what the deal is here. Still Kluge and Rudolph continuing to duke it out here. Starting to catch up to that 15 of Garrett Streets. Of course, Streets has not had anyone to draft with. He has been run all by himself out here, and you can see the power of having someone to work with to help you push through the air resistance and get up towards the front of the field. Once we cross the line, once again, we'll check the lap times out of these drivers as we get ready to start lap number 50 here in tonight's event. I imagine it's going to be a pretty stark difference here between Streets and these 2 teammates of Kluge and Rudolph. Once again, all 3 of them electing to stay out, though, so crossing the line here to get 25 to go. Garrett Streets crosses the line with a 34.29, Mark Kluge a 34.18, and Rudolph a 34.25. So not quite as stark of a difference as I was expecting here, but these 2 drivers are definitely catching up to our race leader here this evening. Of course, this is assuming at some point, these 4 drivers still on the lead lap are going to need to come down pit lane, because I don't believe that they have fuel to the end. Sure enough, saying that, Derek Murphy will be our next taker down on pit lane. He is making the call down there. And Daniel Sparks still down there as well, but he has been down there again for over a minute in his box. So they might be having some mechanical issues with that number 4 machine, but that is going to be knocking him, it looks like, at least 5 laps down now at this point. Still, the battle goes on for the race lead here. At least the provisional race lead for the time being for the drivers on this pit strategy. Streets leading the way over Kluge and Rudolph, but it's only 0.2 of a second between first and second right now. A little bit of a scrape against the outside wall there for Kluge, but they are steadily gaining here on our race leaders. Derek Murphy working his way back out on the track, so that was his scheduled pit stop, a 33-second stop over the 20-second stops that the rest of the field has had so far. So might have taken a little bit extra fuel, or might have just put on tires there when the rest of the field hasn't. Not 100% sure on that here. Another scrape against the outside wall there for Mark Kluge. That's going to cost him some ground, and now Rudolph is going to be our driver running in the second position. Street still doing his best to hold on to the race lead, and that little bit of a bobble is going to give him a tiny bit of ground to play with here. Now about 0.4 of a second up from the 0.2 it was. Luge riding right on the tail of that 188 machine, might be trying to bump draft him here just a little bit, and sure enough, corner entry, Rudolph closes the 0.4 of a second gap all the way down to 0.2 of a second and half a corner. Will we see anyone be able to actually catch up to that 15 machine, though? A little bit further behind, a pretty significant pass, though. Hess has gotten around Brian Sabelski despite the alternate pit strategies. So Hess has now gotten himself into a position where he will cycle around to the race lead once the rest of the field comes down pit lane. Both 20 laps left to go. The clock is really ticking for these drivers to make their stops. I think they're still really holding out hopes here that a caution flag might fly and trap most of the field a lap down. But in the meantime, it seems like their game plan is to run these cars completely dry of every last drop they've got in there. Going around last time by, Mark Kluge was the fastest of a bunch. Streets and Rudolph identical lap times with 34.17s, but a 34 flat for Mark Kluge. As we are going to send it almost 3 wide for the race lead there. Why not? Kluge goes for the move up on the high line. Rudolph trying to make the move down on the inside, not quite able to. We stay out for another lap, though. Going to be 18 to go across the line, as these 3 front-running drivers still have yet to come down pit lane. All nose to tail, Rudolph going down to the inside. Was he trying to make a move on the 15 machine? Not super sure here. Everyone for the time being still all mostly just sticking in the draft between these 3 drivers. And yet again, nobody going to come down pit lane out of this bunch. I am really curious to see just how much fuel they actually have left to play with here. But all continuing to run, and it's all just as crazy for our 3 drivers battling for the race lead. Should Kluge, Streets, and Rudolph come down pit lane at this rate, we're getting so close to the end of the race that I'm wondering if it's a if instead of a win on them pitting. You can see that number 93 of Gardner right behind the 85, trying to figure out how to push him up to catch up to that 12 machine of Hess. It is very close here between the 3 of them, and much like we saw with Kluge, Streets, and Rudolph, the lap times between Hess, Sabelski, and Gardner are darn near identical here. And sure enough, the caution flag is out. And it looks like Garrett Streets has found the way to remove his front bumper. First caution flag of the evening. In a way, at a very opportune time for our 3 front runners. But unfortunately for Garrett Streets, the lack of a nose has definitely thrown a wrench in his operation here. Let's see if we can't take a look back, figure out what exactly happened to this number 15 machine. Might have gone a little bit too far back, we'll see here. But we're looking down here at the number 15. He seems to have a pretty decent gap here. No, we are way too far back. Hold on here. Let's see if we can't get things pulled up correctly here. This looks a little bit more like it. We'll jump a little bit further back here. And more or less in the same spot. But Rudolph way up on the high line. And surprise, there's Garrett Streets. Oh, massive impact for that 15 machine. Absolutely monumental impact, getting right hooked into the outside wall. And yeah, that 15 machine is not holding together there, not with an impact like that. That's right on board here with the driver of the number 15 machine. Just a gnarly impact, and that is all it took to rip the front bumper off, and it looks like it's detached the hood, at least partially, on that 15 machine as well. Going to be very curious if that 15 machine is going to be able to get back out on the speedway or not. But lots of other drivers looking to come down here pit lane as well. Rudolph is down here on pit lane. Kluge down here as well. Of course, Street's down there with damage. Do we have any other takers out of the ones we were expecting? Looks like no. Now driver's just working to catch up to the pace car here. At some point, we're going to find the pace car. There we go. Some drivers getting told to be waved around. Actually, everyone is being told to get waved around because all of our drivers that were still on the lead lap have come down pit lane. So that will wave the entire field around the pace car here and put everyone back on the lead lap. But it's going to be Joshua Rudolph scored as our race leader still. So we'll see how he manages to fare with Garrett Hess right behind him on the restart. At least that's what our timing and scoring board is saying right now, is that it should be Rudolph and Hess 1 and 2 on this restart. Looking around the field, though, everyone's scrambling to try and get caught back up to the pace car here. Of course, at this larger raceway with these lower horsepower cars, it takes a minute to actually get caught up to the pace car when you get given a wave around. But they're working their way up here. Slowly but surely, and then we should be able to get the starting order figured out correctly from there. There we go. Now folks are starting to work their way back up to the pace car, get put back in their proper positions. But while we're here under this yellow, of course, got to give a big thank you to everyone tuning in here tonight for the amazing racing that these ASRC Oval Series drivers put on here. And of course, got to give a monumental shout out to the folks over at the SM Racing Products organization. Of course, Garrett Streets, the driver who took the worst impact in that incident, one of the 2 founding members of SM Racing Products. Streets is the S in SM Racing. A couple of guys that were looking on the sim racing gear market for some equipment and decided they weren't quite happy with what they were looking for, so they said, you know what, why don't we make it ourselves? Sure enough, now they've got a whole business putting together some pretty dang cool stuff. They've got button boxes, they've got light displays, they've got all sorts of neat stuff over there. Of course, that is sm-racingproducts.com. Be sure to check them out. And it looks like we are having a single file restart here, so that will be interesting. But pace car is off. Joshua Rudolph, Mark Kluge leading the field to green. That's going to be Sabelski, Gardner, Hess, Logan, and Murphy here as we all rise our way through the gears here for 11 laps to go at the Darlington Raceway. And immediately with big movers and shakers here, the 78 of Murphy, who is currently still a lap down. So it looks like Murphy unfortunately did not get the wave around there. Going to just stay out the way, wanting to get out of the way. All these drivers who are very ravenous for the race lead, hang on to it there. Almost contact between Sabelski and Gardner there, as these drivers duke it out to try and get back up to the race lead. 10 laps left to go here at Darlington. Big double high five from the flagman, and none of these drivers are going to be given an inch with each other. You see Rudolph falling back here pretty quickly in that 188. I think one of the big things to consider here is that all these drivers that came down to pit under this yellow's tires are not up to temperature. Everyone that pitted earlier in the race, they've got some heat in the tires, they've got some grip. Even if they are worn down maybe a little bit, they are at least a little bit less slidey, a little bit able to push better. Now we see Garrett Hess trying to make the move for the race lead here on Mark Kluge. Kluge up on the high side, Hess down on the bottom. Hess going to make the move here down in turns 1 and 2. Sabelski following just behind in that 85 machine. Kluge going to duck back down. He's going to try and make the move back here, but he gets loose coming out of the corner. Manages to hang on to it, but that's going to cost him some ground. He loses a spot to Sabelski, he loses a spot to Gardner. That's going to bump him back to 4th. And now, once again, we find ourselves with Hess, Sabelski, and Gardner battling for the race lead. 9 laps to go, make that 8 to go as we cross the line here at the Darlington Raceway. All nose to tail for the race lead. It could still be anyone's game here, race fans. Only less than 0.2 of a second between each of these drivers, and Kluge, frankly, still completely involved in this battle as well. Don't count that 45 machine out yet. He is all over the tail of the number 93 of Jason Gardner. Going to try and make a move on the high line. A little bit of a slide, not quite able to make it happen. Rudolph, honestly, really isn't all that far back either, despite falling back on the initial start there. And a little bit of a push there from the 45. Oh, they get loose. Big check up there. Everyone's scrambling around Logan down on the bottom of the track. That's going to cost some ground for Kluge and for Rudolph. And now Garrett Hess and Sabelski find themselves alone in their battle for the front of this race. A full second gap to the rest of the field. Of course, crossing the line with 6 to go. It's still possible that Gardner and Kluge and so on will be able to catch back up here. But for the time being, this battle for the race lead is just Hess and Sabelski. Sabelski less than 1/10 of a second here. He's going to try and make a move on the bottom of the track. 6 laps left to go. Going to be big high five up in the air as we come out of 3 and 4. Sabelski, not quite the entrance he was looking for through turns 3 and 4. He's going to lose some ground. 5 laps left to go here, remaining at the Darlington Raceway. Still over a second between Sabelski and the rest of the field. Unless a caution flag comes out, it is all down to these 2 drivers, as the entire rest of the field still continues to fall away here. Sabelski again peaks down to the bottom. He's going to try and make a move. They make contact, both drivers sideways. Both of them manage to hang on to it, and again, Sabelski falls back. Hess starts to pull away. 4 laps to go. Will Sabelski be able to close that gap up? Both drivers a little bit off the pace there, and of course, little bits of mistakes like that might just be what it takes for Gardner and Kluge to catch back up and make this a 4-car battle for the lead. Sabelski closing in. He tries to make a move once again down the back straightaway. Side by side for the race lead, and this time he has the nose in there. Still neck and neck between these 2 drivers, and here comes Gardner and Kluge. They are getting back in this battle for the lead, but will 3 laps be enough for them to get back into it? Neck and neck here for the race lead. Sabelski has just barely a nose of advantage. They make contact. Hess into the outside wall. He loses a little bit of ground there. Now Gardner's going down the inside. Gardner gets loose off the corner. Side by side for Hess and Gardner for 3rd. And here comes Kluge trying to send it 3 wide. Why not? Kluge makes the pass on Gardner. Gardner wisely backs out of that. He makes contact with Hess. Again, both drivers sideways, but they're keeping it pointed in the right direction as Sabelski begins to sail away into the sunset. And we are making it 3 wide once again down the front straightaway. Gardner backs out of it there just a little bit. Still going to be Kluge and Hess battling it out here for the 2nd position. Sabelski has gotten it up to about 0.3 of a second with 2 laps left to go, but Hess is closing in. He is pushing that car with everything he's got to push left in it, down to 1/10 of a second, but he drifts up through the corner. Coming through turns 3 and 4, white flag up in the air. Going to be 1 lap left to go here at the Darlington Raceway. Only 1.3 miles to determine the winner here. Sabelski right on the heels of, Hess, right on the heels of Sabelski. They're going to make a little bit of contact there, a little bit of a squeeze against the outside wall. Hang on to it there. It is still neck and neck. Heading down to turns 3 and 4 for the final time. Kluge sends it way down to the apron. Drifts all the way up the track. That is not going to work. White flag or checkered flag up in the air. It's going to be Garrett Hess taking home another win here in the ASRC Oval Series. Garrett Hess going and taking home checkered flag number 7 out of 9 races so far this season. What an end to a very dramatic race here at the Darlington Raceway. Only 7/100ths of a second dividing our race winners here at the checkered flag. But it's going to be Garrett Hess getting it done here tonight. Brings it down to the start-finish line. Will we get a burnout out of that number 12 machine? Sure enough, there he goes. He revs it up there just a little bit. And maybe, maybe not. We're thinking about it. We're considering it. The idea of a burnout is there. Doesn't seem like the car is quite working correctly with the driver of that 12 machine. You know what? The effort's there. We're going to give it to him. Garrett Hess takes home the checkered flag here at the Darlington Raceway. And we will be back here in just a moment. We're going to get some words with your top 3 finishers here this evening. Alrighty, race fans, welcome back to the Darlington Raceway. Welcome back to the Attrition Sim Race Campus Oval Series presented by SM Racing Products. An absolutely electric field here tonight. Quite the race out of these little mini stock machines. Once again, though, is going to be none other than Mr. Garrett Hess taking home checkered flag number 7 of the season here tonight. Garrett, how are you feeling here this evening?
I'm feeling absolutely lit up right now. That was an insane finish.
Yeah, certainly quite the battle there. I mean, in the early goings of tonight's race, there was some concerns that this might have just been like last week at Lanier again, but something changed there in the last stage, or the last half of this race, excuse me. How are you? I mean, did you think this would be another decisive victory, or were you expecting things to be that close between y'all?
I was expecting things to be that close, but I was not expecting that caution. Brian and Jason were working together really well in second and third, and that's how they were closing on me. And I was trying to play a little more conservative, but the runs that they were getting down the straight, they were just cooking me. When I was by myself and they were within half a second of each other, And then the pit stops came. I tried to pit with Jason, and then I completely forgot that the commitment cone is way out in turn 3, and I lost a couple seconds slowing down, and then I had to like speed back up to get back to race speed after I missed the commitment cone because I didn't want to get a black flag. And then restart came. I got kind of screwed over by the lucky dog. I was second, but me being the lucky dog put me behind literally everyone after everyone did the wave around. But yeah. But came out with the win. Had a great battle with Brian. A little bit of a bonehead move from Mark, but that's to be expected. You know, you've done 74 laps of this. You know, you got to try something.
Sure enough, definitely a heck of a show at the end of tonight's event. How worried were you in those last laps or two that you wouldn't be taking home the win?
I was pretty worried because I want to win out for the rest of the season. I want to break the record, which I'm still pretty sure is 9 races. So I want to get 10 races this season, and I had to win this if I wanted to achieve that. So I was worried. Brian's fast. He's fast and clean, and I'm just grateful that we have people like him in the league to race me clean.
Sure enough. Of course, going to be furthering your points lead even further here tonight, but that's not all that much of a shocker with how the season's been going so far. Next week, though, we're going to be slowing things down a little bit, heading to the Texas Infield Road Course. Got any particular hopes and aspirations there?
I'm starting to feel pretty good with the mini stock on road courses. Luckily, Texas road course, besides like the oval part of it, doesn't have any like elevation change or anything, and it's mostly flat. So I can wiggle my way around the track pretty competently. It's just gonna depends on who shows up, because if someone like like Ott comes up, or Morelli, they'll definitely give me a run for my money. So it's really just on a case by case basis, but I'm looking forward to it. I'll definitely practice for it.
Good deal. If I understand correctly, you actually don't have to worry about the oval at all. I'm pretty sure this layout is like the 8/10 of a mile exclusively infield layout. So there's no banking. It's a perfectly flat track for you to make some left and right turns on.
Yeah. So yeah, then looking forward to it even more, since that's one less worry that I have to have.
Good deal. Well, it's certainly been a heck of a show for all of y'all here tonight, so I won't keep you here all evening. You got your 7th win to go and celebrate. But before I let you go for the evening, the microphone's all yours, Mr. Hess. Who you want to thank for making everything happen?
Want to thank Brian and Jason for racing me hard and racing me clean. They did a great job. Great to have those type of people in ASRC who can race you hard, race smart, and race you clean. Want to thank people at Team Watson Racing. Great group of guys to hang out with. Want to thank all my friends in GC Tropolis. Had a crazy top split C fix last night. That was insane. So want to give a shout out to all of them. Want to thank my brother for giving me something to wake up for in the morning, and I want to thank Preston, who I didn't link the stream to, but I met him at a convention this week and went bowling with him, had a great time with him, and I want to say thanks for having some fun with me. But besides that, I think that's about it.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out here tonight. Congratulations on the win, and I look forward to seeing you next week at the Texas Road Course.
Yes, sir. I'll see you then.
And finishing back in position number 2, Mr. Brian Sabelski, going for, I believe, the 5th, I want to say, finish that was under a second here this season. Quite the battle y'all had in the second half of this race. How are you feeling here tonight?
I don't know what I got to do anymore to win one of these things. Like, I try everything and nothing seems to work. And it's not Garrett's fault, it's just the way these things are. I've had multiple races now where I've been leading 1, 2, 3 laps to go, and something's happened, and I just end up on the short stick, and that's just the way it seems to be. But I guess if I didn't finish second, I wouldn't finish at all. So we'll take what we can get.
Sure enough, definitely A very chaotic battle there to the end. But of course, you had, what was it really, like 3 weeks ago? Wow. Back at Lime Rock, you had nearly a photo finish with Garrett. And of course, next week, heading to another road course. How do you feel about your odds there?
We'll see. At this point, I keep feeling like good about stuff, and then it doesn't end up being good. So, I guess maybe next week I just go into it with like no expectations. Like I thought I had that. I thought I had that covered tonight, and I had it covered. Had we not got a caution, which that's just the way things are. Garrett Streets wasn't trying to bring out a caution or anything like that. Hey, that's just the way things fall. Yeah, just a lot of stuff, such as the way things go, and I'm just we'll just do our best and roll on.
Well, after we get through the Texas road course, we only got 2 more races left in the mini stock before we head on over to the NASCAR trucks. It'll be a clean slate. Do you think that maybe you'll have some better success in a higher horsepower car?
Probably. Uh, I've been running trucks for years now, so it will feel like it's going to feel like a little bit of a nice glove back on the hand there. So yeah, I should uh, hopefully have a good run with the trucks, and we'll try and do our best here for the remaining races too.
Good deal. I know there are a lot of fans out there that are waiting with bated breath for you to take home a win here this season, but they've got something good to look forward to next season as well. But of course, before I let you go here for the evening, of course, another podium to your name. That's at least something to celebrate. But the microphone is all yours, Mr. Sabelski. Who do you want to thank for making everything happen?
Thanks, folks. I'm Coney Setup Shop, official setup shop at eNASCAR. Doing a good job out there. SM Racing Products, for sponsoring the series and for my lovely button box. Jason and everyone for putting the league here together on Monday nights and doing all the hard work of getting all cars and tracks and stuff set and making sure everything works. Tonight was fun. It was really fun. I hate to not come out with the win, having run so well and feeling like I really had a shot at it. But yeah, that's the way things are. And hi everyone in chat, and hi to my lovely girlfriend and my cat that support me.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out here tonight. Congratulations on another podium to your name. And I look forward to seeing you next week at Texas.
Thank you.
And finishing back here in position number 3, that's going to be League Administrator Mr. Jason Gardner. Rocking a new paint scheme here tonight. It seems like it brought some fortune out here to you. How are you feeling here this evening?
I'm feeling exhausted after that race. That was one exciting race.
Absolutely. That was quite the battle y'all had going on there in the final half of the race. Coming into tonight's event, of course, you have run this race before in another league, so how are you feeling about your chances of success here?
Uh, I was optimistic. Yeah, I knew I had a little bit of advantage racing a race here in a previous league, but eh, I knew that people like Brian, Garrett, and others they will probably learn this track and be right on pace when after practice. And I would say the experience did help with a little bit with me getting third, but just not enough to win.
Still, a podium to your name isn't half bad at all. Of course, in the early half of that race, it seemed like Garrett was kind of sailing away with things. So, how did you think that things would be ended up this close, and what did you have to do to get into that position to potentially take home a checkered flag?
I kind of had a feeling things were gonna pull back up because des- despite how slow these cars are, you can burn up the tires. So when I saw them kind of pull away at the very beginning of the run, I knew that eventually me and Brian were going to reel them back in. All we just had to do is stay lined up and stay in the draft and just waited.
Fair enough. Y'all certainly closed it up down there in the tail end of the race. What do you think might have had to have gone different there in those last couple of laps for you to be taking home the checkered flag?
Maybe Mark doing his Hail Mary and taking out Brian and Garrett in turns 3 and 4. uh,
Fair enough.
that's about all I could think of. The only way I could have got the win tonight.
Well, certainly still a very good performance out of you. Of course, next week we head to the Texas Infield Road Course. Then we have USA International Speedway's dirt layout before crowning the championship at South Boston. How are you feeling about your chances of getting potentially a win at one of those 3 tracks?
It would be nice, definitely, but I'm gonna have to practice a whole lot and have a little luck on my side in order to beat Garrett, because he's trying to go for the record of most wins in a season, and he ain't gonna let a win up easily.
Absolutely. I guess also as well, out of those 3 tracks, which do you feel like will be your strongest performance?
If I had to pick one of them, maybe South Boston, because I'm not very good at road courses, and I don't have a whole lot of experience on dirt.
Fair enough. Well, I'm definitely curious to see how things shake up for the 3 of y'all and for the rest of the field here in these final couple of races before we crown another champion. But of course, for tonight, before I let you go celebrate getting another podium to your name, the microphone is all yours, Mr. Gardner. Who do you want to thank for making everything happen?
I'd like to thank you for broadcasting the series for all this time. I also like to thank SM Racing at smracingproducts.com. I also like to thank Brian, Garrett, and everybody else who was racing today, and I'd like to thank everybody out there who's watching. Without y'all, none of this would be possible.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out here tonight. Heck of a performance by all of y'all, and I look forward to seeing you next week at Texas.
Looking forward to seeing you next week as well.
Well, you heard it here first, race fans. Your top 3 finishers here tonight: Garrett Hess, Brian Zabelski, Jason Gardner, your podium finishers here this evening. But of course, those weren't the only drivers here in tonight's event. So how about we take a quick look down at our race results as they stand, see how things shook up for the rest of the field here tonight. Of course, back in 4th in the 188 entry, that's going to be none other than Mr. Joshua Rudolph. And then back in 5th, rounding out the tail end of the top 5, Mr. Mark Kluge. Those 2 K9P racing drivers put on a heck of a show here tonight. And honestly, they were just as much in contention as our top 3 finishers here for the race win. This fortunately did not quite work out for either of those drivers. How about back in 6th, though? That's the CZ Robotics number 24 of Corey Logan as the last driver on the lead lap, followed by the 78 of Derek Murphy back there in 7th. That's going to be the 15 machine of Garrett Streets, back in 8th, followed by Daniel Sparks and Michael Sparks, rounding out the tail end of the field here this evening. So that's just about all we got here from the Darlington Raceway here, of course, in the beautiful Darlington, South Carolina. Next week, heading on over to Texas for a little bit more road coursing on a very tiny, very sketchy little road course on the infield of the Texas Motor Speedway. Definitely going to be very curious to see how these drivers manage to shake things out there. Of course, after that, only 2 more races before we crown a champion for season number 17. Then, of course, we'll take some time off before heading on to season 18 in the NASCAR truck. So definitely be sure to stay tuned there for that. Of course, that's about all we've got here tonight. Be sure to tune in same day, same time, Monday night at 10 p.m. Eastern. And I will see you all next